Hey guys, Pitch here, and today I want to talk about Harvest, specifically Harvest 3.14, the intended changes by GGG. It's been a really hot topic of late, and I've got some opinions of my own, which I'm going to go through today. So just to give you some background, I actually skipped Harvest League. I started in Blight, and I had other commitments, so I didn't play Harvest. So this is the first introduction to the mechanic. This league has been the first introduction. And I think the first thing to talk about is how it affected the league versus non-Harvest leagues. I think I'm in a pretty good position to talk about that, having not played Harvest. So the first point would be that I noticed it heavily dominated the economy. So I personally underestimated its impact. So this league I made about a fifth of my normal league currency due to my usual methods just not being attractive anymore. Players were no longer settling for GG gear, but they were always looking for GG plus Harvest gear. So that's the first thing that I noticed. So let's talk about that domination. Why was it so powerful, or why is it so powerful? The first thing to know is that 99.9% of loot that drops is absolute garbage and worthless. And let's face it, POE is a loot and economy driven game. So I believe this is the core reason and should be the focus of GGG's efforts, along with performance. The second thing is that Harvest was the loot. Finding a Harvest became the loot. So these crafts would net you exalts, even if you didn't want them for yourself. You were selling them on TFT and that was netting you exalts. That became your currency maker. And number three was, it wasn't gated behind endgame content, which is another issue, because running white maps for Harvest was more profitable than grinding out tier 16s. You could easily outperform a full Cyrus cycle by just running white maps for Harvest, easily. So those are the reasons why I believe Harvest was so powerful, this league is so dominant, and the reason why Harvest changes need to happen. Not specifically the changes that they're proposing, but changes. Because one single mechanic, especially a core mechanic, should not have this much dominance over the game. So here are my thoughts on Harvest, the way that it is now. Because, as we've just discussed, 99.9% of loot dropped is worthless, players look to crafting for their endgame gear. The problem is, PoE has no crafting, it's just gambling, and gambling is not crafting. My second thought on Harvest is that some form of deterministic crafting is very much needed in the game. But the way it's implemented, this league was very, very poor in my opinion. And this was even after months of planning. I think it's been 7 months since they took Harvest out of the game. They've had all of that time to sort of reintroduce it in a sensible way, in a way that works, and that failed. So let's look at some of the reasons why I believe it was implemented very poorly, this league. So the trade and hope method that Discord trading provided was absolutely unacceptable and should never have happened. This is not the fault of TFT or other Discord servers. The blame lies with GGG. If they're going to allow items to be tradable, but not allow them to be tradable in-game, then of course players are going to find other means of trading them. One of the other things was the 10 craft limit, and they actually allude to that in their patch notes here. I mean, they've got far fewer of the crafts that were overwhelming people with quantity. Well, that ties hand in hand with actually having a 10 craft limit. The 10 craft limit only came into play for me when you jumped into a harvest and let's say you had 9 or even 10 already stored in your horticrafting station, and you should be storing these because you only have 10 and you have certain items that you really want to craft. You may not have the bases yet, you may not have got far enough to be able to use Harvest on them yet, but you should be storing them ready to craft the gear that you want to craft. So what would happen is you would actually get into a harvest and then you'd be fortunate enough to find 4 or even 5 good ones, good crafts. And what are you going to do at this point? I mean, you can't store them. You're going to have to make a choice which ones in your horticrafting station to keep, or you jump on TFT and you sell them. And that can take you out of the game flow for half an hour to an hour, because you're then spending time on TFT trying to sell those spare crafts. And why wouldn't you? Because as we've just spoken about, harvest crafts became the loot. This was exalts worth of loot. So you're not just going to skip them and leave them. That means going into TFT, it means posting, you only get one chance every 30 minutes, so you were posting at a discounted rate to make sure that you got rid of them. Loads of faffing about, getting people in, coming into your portals, using your... honestly, so the 10 craft limit is the reason why people were feeling overwhelmed with quantity. So I don't think that was a good idea. I understand why they did it. They wanted, that was their way of nerfing harvest, if you will, so you couldn't just bulk them up. But looking at the patch notes here, that's the reason why this exists. And the last issue implementation this league was the fact that they were non-tradable in-game. So overall, looking at the patch notes here, or the intended patch notes, making these changes to Harvest tones it down to a point where it's no longer what the game is missing. It's just another add-on mechanic that is bloating the game for the sake of it. It may as well be removed at this point, reworked and reintroduced later. So there has literally been thousands and thousands of suggestions put forward by the community about their ideas on improving Harvest and implementing them into the game, and I believe all of them deserve consideration by GGG. Even before making this video, I put together a really quick mock-up of an idea that could work. I'm not saying this is the answer, I'm just saying it is a plausible solution. So you've got different coloured seeds when you go into Harvest. This one in particular is purple. I like the stash layout of the heist locker for this particular idea. So you would have a stash tab, which is sellable by GGG, and I'm sure a lot of people would buy it. And here, instead of rogue markers, you would actually have blank purple orbs, blank blue orbs, and blank or empty yellow orbs, etc. for all the different colours of seeds that you can get. So what happens is, when you enter a harvest here, I can take one of those purple orbs, put it in here, and then I can choose one of these crafts to put into this purple orb, and it would gain X amount of progress towards completing it. So here would go your incomplete orbs, and here would go your complete orbs. So putting a blank one in here and then choosing, say, a new physical modifier, that might complete the orb 50%. So under here, under physical modifier, you would have an orb, one of these orbs here would be 50% complete. So the next time I get it, put it in there, do it again, it fills it up, goes into a completed craft, and I can then use and trade that orb. So that is one simple idea that takes away the external trading. It makes them tradable so people can keep as many as they want. It makes it harder to get hold of them because you're going to need multiple harvests to fill up one craft. And it keeps deterministic crafting in the game. So, plausible suggestion, and there have been thousands more. So I hope you found that constructive opinion somewhat interesting or entertaining. Those are my thoughts on Harvest, and those are my thoughts on the changes that they are suggesting here. I'm not too sure if they will go through with this. This does not feel very well thought through whatsoever, and it may well be something that they modify in the coming weeks, even days. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So please feel free to leave your comments down below. I'm really interested to hear your opinion on my opinions, and that's it until the next video. So thanks guys, take care, bye bye.